Earthquake, a sudden and violent shaking of the ground, sometimes causing destruction as a result of movement within the Earth's crust. We hear stories on our news stations from countries all around the world experiencing deadly earthquakes, but we often forget the one that lies right beneath us here in the U.S. The San Andreas Fault, better known as the Big One, has produced some of the deadliest earthquakes in U.S. history, causing catastrophic damage. With that being said, we are going to take a look into what the San Andreas Fault is, the history behind the San Andreas Fault, and what would happen if there were to be an earthquake there today. Now that I've introduced you to one of the deadliest fault lines in the US, let's go back to middle school and take a few moments to go over a brief lesson about earthquakes. Now, I'm sure you all have heard about the Richter scale, tectonic plates, or possibly even a transform fault, but I'll give you guys a recap. The Richter scale is a scale that measures the magnitude of an earthquake, exactly how powerful it is, and what destruction it will cause. According to caltech.edu, California, running all the way down to the Salton Sea, is capable of producing an 8.1 magnitude earthquake. This would not only be devastating, but deadly. Tectonic plates are pieces of land that surround the Earth's outer shell. They most often resemble puzzle pieces that protect the Earth's ground. A transform fault is a fault where plate boundaries move horizontally past each other, causing friction. This friction is what causes earthquakes. Now, the San Andreas Fault is a continental transform fault that extends over 750 miles in California. The tectonic boundary within the San Andreas Fault forms the Pacific is where the Pacific boundary meets the North American boundary. Now that we've gone over a short science lesson, let's go over a brief history lesson into how the San Andreas Fault came to be. The San Andreas Fault was born over 30 million years ago, but was founded in 1895 by UC Berkeley geology professor Andrew Lawson. Andrew Lawson named the San Andreas Fault after the Laguna de San Andreas, which is a small linear valley formed by the San Andreas Fault just south of San Francisco. According to geologypage.com, the San Andreas Fault is the most popular fault in the world, partly because of the 1906 disastrous earthquake, but mainly because it runs through California, a highly populated state that is always on the news. The 1906 disastrous earthquake in San Francisco completely leveled San Francisco, causing 3,000 people to perish, 28,000 buildings collapsed, 250,000 people were left homeless, and there were over $500 million in damages. Shortly after this earthquake, a sea level disturbance, better known to us as a tsunami, ran through the city, causing San Francisco to be even more damaged than it was before. Now that we've gone over a short history lesson and our brief science lesson, let's talk about the future of the fault. California has experienced several small earthquakes within the past couple of years, which have only brought us closer to the possibility of the big one erupting. According to BusinessInsider.com, California, the San Andreas Fault ruptures every 150 years, and the southernmost part of the fault hasn't experienced an earthquake in over 200. This means we are way overdue for a major shake. Are you serious? Okay, according to USGS, in a hypothetical 7.1 earthquake, we could still see 18,000 people perish, 900 people pass away in fires, 250 in building damages, and 250 in transportation accidents. So although we have new technology that could help us detect these earthquakes, this doesn't mean we're out of the clear. Now, as Iowans, you're probably thinking, why do we have to worry about the San Andreas Fault? Iowa could still face repercussions due to an earthquake along the San Andreas Fault, and our states surrounding us could also. So now that we've talked about what exactly the San Andreas Fault is, the history behind the San Andreas Fault, and the future of the fault, we now are more aware of the fault, its capabilities, and the repercussions. If you ever find yourself in an instance of an earthquake, remember to duck and cover.